In this video, we're going to learn about the colors of your design and how you can know what colors are in a design, how you can change the colors of your design, how you can change the color palette that you're working with, and we'll also learn about how you can select by colors and how you can set your default colors. So to get started, what I'm going to do is choose my browser tab and select one of the CMX artworks and double click to quickly create an embroidery design that has several colors in it. And what I want to show you first is down at the bottom of my workspace. There is the colors of our design, and they're shown in this window with a fill tab. So paint bucket is for the fill tab, and the pencil is for the outline. And what this tells me is that in the design right now, we have all of these colors, red and beige and colored, couple of shades of brown, white, couple shades of blue, and yellow. And we have no outline colors. The outline is left empty. You see, each shape of our design can have either a fill or an outline, and it can include both fill and outline. So for example, if I select here for the center of the helmet's badge, the badge of his helmet, you'll notice that it highlights the beige because that's the color it's filled in, and it highlights the none because that's the color that it has no outline. If you wanted to add an outline color to this shape, you would simply need to click in the outline field if you wanted to add one of the colors that are already in use in this design. So if I click here, I'll get a blue outline around that beige fill, and if I zoom in a little bit closer, you can see the blue outline around the beige fill. And so in that way, we can add or adjust the colors of our design. Now, if you want to talk about colors that aren't already in this design, then you're going to look to your colors tab, and that's found here where your properties box is. Down at the bottom, you can change from the properties tab to the colors tab. And now we have a whole color palette that we can choose from. And in fact, we have many color palettes because up at the very top, it allows us to choose the color palette that we would like to have our colors to select from. So if I choose Janome, then the colors here relate to the Janome thread colors. Now, these are shown now in a grid of sort of thumbnails, or I can change to details where it will tell me the name, show me what it looks like as an outline or as a fill. Now, while we're talking about the color palettes, you can actually choose what color palettes are displayed. And to do that, we look under the Tools drop-down menu for the options. And this window that opens up has several tabs, which I'll talk about in a subsequent video. But specifically today, we'll look at the Palette Order tab. And this is where you can choose from a much larger list of all of these different color palettes that you may have for brands of thread. And so by checking them as visible, it indicates that you want them to be included in this colors section. And so if I don't have any Ackerman Isocord, I can simply uncheck all of these options. And when I say OK, it tells me that the changes will be applied the next time the program starts, but I have found that those changes are often applied immediately just by looking in my colors tab. So if I go ahead and select the Janome color chart, these are the Janome colors. Now, if I wanted to give this center of his helmet a purple fill and a green outline, I could come over to my colors choice and find the purple fill and click on the fill section, and it will give it the purple fill, and find the green but move to the outline section to give it a green outline. And so now looking at the bottom, we can see the colors that are currently in our design are all of these colors, including the purple that we just added, plus this green, which we know is an outline color. So in that way, you can change the colors of your design. Now, you can also select based on the colors of your design, and you could change these colors. So if you didn't like the colors as they are now, so I can see that red, if I click on this red, I can see that it's this red color here. And if I wanted to make sure that I got everything in the color red, I can right click over top the color red and I get the choice of either edit color, select by fill color, or select by color, which would mean the outline. So if I say select by fill color, it will select all objects that are in that, have that red fill color. And now I could change their color. Now, if I wanted to select a new color, I could come over to my color list and just select pink, and now they would be, a pink fill. If I just wanted to change the pink color within my color palette so that everything that was pink is now something else, I can also right click and say to edit the color. And now it gives me a color wheel where I can choose based on a palette. So right now it's based on the Janome palette, but of course you can choose from any of the palettes that you have selected. You can choose the intensity of that color as well as the location on the color wheel. And as I bring this around, it will snap when it finds other Janome colors that match to the color wheel. And so I can quickly give him a green color or whatever. So these are the ways that you can search by color. So if I wanted to, for example, click on his face, I can see that this is brown and it's this shade of brown. If I right click on this shade of brown and say select by fill color, it will quickly select all of the colors that are in that color, and then I could quickly change them all to be, for example, black. Now, you can also adjust your default colors. And if you don't know what I mean by default colors, when I create a shape, so if I click on the ellipse tool and click and drag to create an ellipse, my ellipse immediately comes in with a light blue fill and a dark blue outline, and let's call those the default colors. And if you'd rather have your default fill be yellow, then you can simply come and left click over top of the color yellow. And well, of course, this is already selected, so I've simply changed the color to be yellow. Let me click off to have nothing selected. So use my selection tool, make sure nothing is selected. Now if I left click over top of the color yellow, it gives me the option to set this color as my default fill color for either graphic objects or text objects. So for new graphic objects like ellipses, we'll make yellow the new fill color and say OK. And then what about the outline color? Right now it's set for this dark blue outline. If you'd rather it be, for example, a white outline, I'll just come and click over top of the white in the outline and say make that the default. And it's for this design or for all new designs. So if you always want to make yellow fills with white outlines, choose for every design. Otherwise, for this design will only affect the design we're currently working on. But now if I take my shapes tool and click and drag, I get a yellow fill with a white outline as my default. And you can use the same principle, click on the white fill for text objects and say OK. And now all new text objects will also be in the color white. And it looks like they'll have a black outline as their default. If I wanted to have text objects that by default had no outline, because of course we know that I can take the outline off of the word Trevor by selecting it, coming down to the color palette and clicking on the X for outline, which means now we just have my name with no outline. If you want that to be your default, then come and click on the default, the X, and set that for text objects as the default and not for graphic objects for this design only, and say OK. And now if I start a new text object, let's see what it's going to say. Bulldogs. You'll notice that right away it's got white fill only with no outline, and that is because we were able to set the default fill and outline colors. Another great way to interact with the colors of your design is through using the Color Manager. And because the Color Manager has so many great functions, I'm going to record a separate video just to focus on how to use the Color Manager.